Okay, we'll officially begin. So welcome everyone to this presentation by Barbary. Thank you for joining and attending. It is being recorded. This is the presentation on the LPC or the SQE prep. And just a bit about Barbary in context for you all. Barbary is a global legal education provider. We've been specializing in preparing candidates for centralized legal exams since 1967. We are American based, so we were preparing candidates for the American bar exams, which we still continue to do today. But the international side of Barbary were founded in 2015, 7 years ago, I should say now. And we initially were extending our bar prep courses for the international market who wanted to dual qualify as lawyers in America because of the growth of American law firms. But then we entered the UK legal education market in 2017, operating the QLTS courses, the courses designed for foreign qualified lawyers to qualify as solicitors, which the new SQE assessments mirror. And that led us nicely into entering the SQE market. Just by way of introduction, my name is Hemant Chauhan. I am a legal manager in the institutional partnerships team at Barbary. I'm kindly joined by a few other Barbary colleagues. Miriam, she's here, I think. I've just seen her. I think her video's turned off, but she will be in the chat. So if you do have questions that you want to raise, she'll be kindly answering all your questions in the chat, and we can go through your questions at the end. I'm also joined by two other colleagues of mine, Victoria and Jonathan. Victoria and Jonathan, they both work in operations at Barbary, but they are also current LPC students, and they'll be giving their feedback and views on the LPC as LPC students themselves. So, what is the traditional route to qualification? Well, the traditional route is that you do your LLB or your non-law degree. You then follow that by the graduate diploma in law for non-law degree candidates, followed by the legal practice course. Then it's this training contract, which is really, really hard now to find more so than ever. And then you qualify as a solicitor in England and Wales. That's the current route that we have known it to be since day one of qualification as a solicitor. But that's all changed now. But what is the legal practice course? So the legal practice course is the final vocational stage of training as a solicitor. You typically complete this 1 year full-time at a provider or 2 years part-time at a provider in various UK locations. You can do it in London, or the Midlands, or up north in Leeds, Manchester, and the like, or you could opt to do that online as well. Now, there are options for a tailored legal practice course. So if you want to specialize in a certain area of law, such as commercial, corporate law, or family law, or human rights, you can tailor your LPC into electives that include those subjects that prepare you for practice. Now, there are options to incorporate an LLM component with the LPC, which enables UK students for student funding. So they can mainly fund most of their LPC courses through that grant given by the government. And it's also important to note that the legal practice course assessments are not national exams. They are assessments written by each education exam provider, such as BPP, University of Law, and other providers like Nottingham Trent as well. And it's also important to note about the costs. It's a big factor. It can range from £10,000 to £11,000 if you're doing it up in the regions, to as much as £17,000, £18,000 if you're doing it in London. So it can be very cumbersome, very costly from the outset. Wiki, I just wanted to introduce you now to the call. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really ask you about one, what's your general background firstly? Did you study law? Did you study a non-law degree? How did you come about entering the legal market, if you like?
Yeah, so I started the undergraduate LLB degree at University of Westminster. And what I did a 4-year degree, so it incorporated 1-year exchange in another jurisdiction. So I do have a legal background in the UK, but it had a European aspect to it where I had the opportunity to study other legal systems such as Germany, France, and the Netherlands.
Okay, and now you're studying the legal practice course at University of Westminster, is that correct?
Yes, so when I was considering on whether to take on the LPC and when to take on the LPC, at the time SQE wasn't really an option. No one really knew much about it. Some of the tutors were aware of it, but again, there wasn't much information out there. So when I was deciding to take the LPC, one of the things I considered was whether I can take a break in my studies. And it was just a personal choice. I know that if I kind of stop something, it's hard for me to get started again. So I wanted to go straight from my undergraduate degree onto my LPC. So that's one of the reasons why I went for the LPC in the first place, since the SQE wasn't an option at the time.
Sure.
Um,
And
yeah.
what do you enjoy about the legal practice course?
Well, as you mentioned already, it's quite tailored. So you have the option of kind of focusing on an area of law that you potentially might want to practice in the future. So taking on the LPC was quite nice to be able to have those opportunities out there. With the SQE, of course, you don't really have that option. It's a general exam that everyone takes. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I did enjoy about the LPC.
And conversely, what don't you enjoy about the LPC?
So one of the so it was quite difficult for me to attend some of the classes whilst working. Obviously, I've been working at Barbary full time.
Yeah.
I did enter the LPC knowing that I did want to work full time, but one of the difficulties was, although it was flexible in terms of being able to do it part time, it was still classes that were set on certain days. So I did
Yeah.
have to block out 2 days a week in order to be able to commit some time to the LPC plus time over the weekend to make the necessary preparations. For my university, because it's quite a small department for the
Yeah.
LPC, it was only weekdays, there was no weekend options. So again, it would have to be studying after work. So you'd do an 8 days worth of work and then you'd have to do another 3 to 4 hours of the LPC studies after that. So I think that's one of the difficulties of the LPC and doing it part-time along working full-time.
And you touched about this already, but I just want to get into the detail. Like, you're obviously doing an part-time LPC, you're working full-time at Barbary. How are you finding navigating that through? Must be a very busy week for you looking at that, and with assignments, assessments, and how do you find navigating that?
Yeah, exactly. And with the LPC, the assessments that you do and the exams that you take are quite intensive. Usually the assessments are 3 hours long and, it takes a lot of preparation to prepare for the exam itself. So it's a constant battle trying to be able to keep up to date with the content of the course whilst working full time. And sometimes when you've done a 4 days worth of work, you just don't want to be focusing on any more reading or looking at any more books. So it was a little bit difficult. I would say it was quite important to have the support of the employer. So if you have an employer that understands your commitment outside of work and they're able to cater to those commitments, whether you need annual leave or whether you need to take on a slightly lighter work a certain week because you have upcoming exams. So it was quite nice to have the support of the management team. Working in the legal field, your diary can change from week to week, from day to day. You can be, not doing much one week and be very busy the next. So to have that flexibility there and having an employer that does understand your needs is quite important.
That makes sense. Okay, well, we're going to hold the questions there. So I'll carry through the rest of the PowerPoint, but if you'd like to kindly stay, I'm sure the audience will have questions for you about the LPC. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
no worries.
Okay, so the timeline of the LPC qualification journey, we've mapped this general chart out, and we typically feel that this is most accurate dates today. So, I mean, a typical LLB or non-law degree will carry you 3 to 4 years full time, generally. Some degrees I understand are 5 years, depending what they are, but most are 3 or 4 years full time. And then once you complete that, you then progress onto the GDL for non-law students, and then the LPC, which is going to realistically take you 2 to 3 years if you're doing it full time or part time. And then the reality is, not everyone will secure training contracts during their degree. So what will happen is the majority will secure some sort of legal role, whether it's a paralegal, legal assistant role in a firm or in-house, or it could be some sort of compliance role if you're doing it in a bank. And most generally will paralegal their way through building their legal work experience up to then reapply for training contracts. And then if you're successful, you'll obtain a training contract, have improved that, and then you'll be able to qualify as a solicitor in England and Wales. And that's the current route and timeline of LPC qualification journey. If you look at the years mapped out, it can probably take you over a decade to actually qualify when you go through the whole process, if not more. And so we see that might not be an ideal timeline with the current route, and it's something to consider. Now, there is a transition period that you should note, is that with the new SQE solicitors qualifying exam, it was introduced, officially implemented on 1st of September 2021. Now, the SRA have been clear that they are holding a transition period timeline that applied to anyone who before 1st of September had completed, started, accepted an offer for the GDL, the LPC, or a training contract. So if you have completed or started or accepted any of these things and you're still midway through the current route, you can still carry on through that current transition period, and you're not then inhibited to then go on to the SQE. You can still carry on with the current traditional route. Now, the SRA have said that legal practice course approvals will be extended until at least 2025, 2026. So it is very much now in decline, the LPC. There's a lot more focus, effort on the new route to qualification, as providers like us are getting ready for it. Law firms are now starting to have conversations about preparing their trainees for the market, and also, you know, institutions, universities who want to prepare their students equally for the SQE. So why is the SQE being introduced? Well, there's really 3 reasons. It's probably more, but these are the main reasons. One is that arguably the current route isn't working. The reality is there are more training contract applications than there are training contracts available. Training contracts are like gold dust, very, very rare, very difficult to find. Not impossible, but just very difficult. And the reality is that no matter how strong you are on paper, you just may not make the cut with certain firms that you want to work for as a trainee. And the competition is fierce. In fact, the competition has been more tighter since COVID, and the pandemic has given aid to that. So there's a lot of qualified applicants with good academics, good experience, very switched on, academically intellectual, practically capable as well. But the reality is some will just never find that training contract. And so there's a bottleneck, and that's created a lot of, if you like, chaos, for lack of a better word. And the other factor is cost, expensive LPC courses. In fact, we did a study with Hook Tengaza, and they found that 70% of students are self-funding their LPC. So that's a lot of debt that you are carrying on one's shoulders, especially if you don't have the help of the bank of mum and dad, or you're not wealthy. And the reality is a lot of students are self-funding their LPC, between whether it's 10,000 if you're doing it in the regions or 18,000 if you're doing it in London. It's a lot of money, plus accommodation costs as well if you're doing it full time. And so the reality is the cost is very, very, it's a big factor. And I think that's why the SQE is being introduced, to hopefully appease that. And I'll talk about costs later on. And the other issue is, this has always been an issue in the legal profession. It's been very much seen as a conservative profession, very traditional, but there are diversity, inclusion, accessibility issues. And with the SQE, the SRA and we as a provider hope that the SQE will mitigate those issues, increase diversity and accessibility to all applicants who stand a fair playing shot of qualification as a solicitor, no matter what background, which socioeconomic background that you are from. If you have the talent and you have the degree, you can qualify via the SQE. There should be no reason otherwise why not. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. So what is the SQE? So the SQE is the new system of qualification as a solicitor. It's a two-stage exam assessment. First exam is multiple choice, which is SQE 1. SQE 2 is a legal skills assessment. It's available for everyone who has a degree in any subject. So whether you studied law or non-law subjects such as philosophy, sciences, or history, or whatever it is, you can take the SQE straight away. You do not need a conversion course. The first exam was sat in November 2021. We saw many of our students sit that last year. They are awaiting the results with anticipated breath, understandably, as are we, and those results will be released, the SRA has stated, on 20th of January, no later than 3 p.m. So that's quite a big milestone date for all of us concerning the SQE. So what is the new path to qualification? There's these various components: SQE 1, SQE 2, qualifying work experience, and then you can go to the character and suitability requirements to qualify as a solicitor. So SQE 1, the exam fee is listed there, which is £1,558. It's a mixed subject multiple choice test on English law. It's a 2-day exam of 360 questions. 1 day of those exams is 5 hours, so it's a 10-hour exam in total. It's sat in a computer-based Pearson VUE test center in many UK locations and some worldwide international locations as well. Once you pass SQE 1, you then progress on to SQE 2. The exam fee is listed there, £2,422. And the subjects that are covered is client interviewing, advocacy, drafting research, and case analysis as well. So it's a very practical test on how you practice law as a solicitor. 50% of it will be skills-based, 50% of it using the procedural knowledge that you have of English law. And that's about a 5.5-day test in either London, Cardiff, or Manchester. The applicant chooses whichever location is easier to get to sit the test. It's covered over 2 weeks. So 1 week would be about 2.5, 3 days of testing. The second week would be 2.5 or 3 days, whichever it is. So it's quite long. There'll be various stations to complete. We provide the prep courses for that as well. And that's what's covered, you know, the tests, the subjects, you know, criminal litigation, dispute resolution, wills and intestacy, probate, admin, and practice. So very procedural things as well. And ethics will pervade as it does in SQE 1 as well. And that's generally what SQE 2 will look like in terms of the testing. So you'll have orals day 1, orals day 2, and then you have written days on 1, 2, and 3. And there's various practice areas and skills that are covered as well. So what is qualifying work experience? Well, qualifying work experience is a legal skills type of assessment that you're doing. It's arguably the new training contract. Now, this is 2 years of full-time legal work or equivalent. So qualifying work experience is any legal work supervised by a solicitor. It could be paralegal work, it could be legal assistant work, advisory work, pro bono work will even count. The training contract will obviously count as well if you are on a training contract. But any legal work completed full-time, supervised by an English solicitor will count towards QWE. Now, there's an opportunity to develop those competencies needed to practice. The SRA, on their qualifying work experience section, have laid out the various competencies that you need to evidence. It's also important to note that you do not need to evidence all competencies, because not all legal jobs will not evidence all competencies. So if you're in a very transactional area of law, let's say like, I don't know, property, commercial property, conveyancing, something like that, obviously you'll be able to convey the competencies of written work, drafting, forms, and the likes of that, but you wouldn't be able to evidence areas such as like advocacy, speaking in court, because it's a very non-contentious area of law, and that's fine as well. The SRA has said only some of the competencies are needed to be evidenced, not all, because it's not really possible otherwise. It has to be signed off by a supervising solicitor or compliance officer of legal practice, and it can be obtained in up to 4 separate organizations. So you can just do it in one law firm or business, or you can mix and match and use different separate organizations for your QWE as well. You could be doing 6 months in each business, you could be doing 1 year in one and various in another, as long as it equates to 2 years full time. This is the timeline of your SQE qualification journey. Again, you complete your law degree or non-law, 3 or 4 years generally full time. You then go into, with Barbary at least, SQE1 prep. We offer 40, 20 or 10 weeks. It's worth noting that the 40-week courses are designed for non-law graduates and those who are just working full-time as well, which is actually our very popular courses. It gives more flexibility and the like of that. 20 or 10 weeks are designed for law graduates who English law graduates who have naturally more understanding of law, and they feel they can cope with the intensive schedule to prepare for these assessments. And then once they pass SQE1, they go into SQE2, which we offer as a 12-week course. And then your QWE. What I didn't say about QWE is that it can be retrospectively completed. So if you've already been paralegaling for a certain amount of years already, or doing legal work, whatever it is, before going on to the SQE, that will already count, and you can get that supervised and signed off straight away. And all you would need to do is just complete the SQE assessments. So it can be retrospectively completed throughout the SQE, or after the SQE assessments, whichever you prefer. And that makes it a lot more flexible. And then you can qualify as a solicitor in England and Wales via the SQE. Now, we've composed this chart, which I more or less sort of talked about in some detail, but the LPC versus the SQE, which is, I guess, why we are here today, which one should you choose? We believe that the SQE gives more benefits, provides more benefits and flexibility and cost factors involved as well. And I'll talk about our course fees later on. But the LPC, as I said, very expensive. You still have to find that training contract to qualify. There will be a reduction of available training spots expected. It may be reduced, by 2025, 2026. Universities, law firms, and providers are shifting their focus to preparing for the SQE because those are the newer modern assessments. The SQE with Barbary costs about £6,000 for all courses. So SQE 1 and 2 will be about 6,000, excluding any discounts or scholarships, plus the exam fees, which are about 4,000, which brings the total investment just under 10. But there are flexible options for your work experience. You can earn while you learn. You do not have to spend that 10,000 all at once. You can spread it over time, and the course fees are a lot more affordable than the 11 to 16,000 published there on the left. So how do we prepare you? Well, we give you all these features: the personal study plan, that's your online portal full of all the lectures, assignments, and reading material and questions to get through. We're technology driven, so we have this algorithm called Isaac, Intuitive Study Assistant and Coach. We have all students are assigned a one-to-one personal learning coach. These are qualified solicitors or barristers in England and Wales. They have a lot of teaching experience for English legal assessments. Many of them used to teach on the professional skills courses, the legal practice courses, the bar professional courses as well in England before working for Barbary full time. So they have a wealth of experience on how to get you exam ready for these assessments. We've contracted with some of the top law tutors to deliver the lectures. We're very multiple choice exam focused. For your reference, because of our heritage from the US bar exams, 50% of an American bar exam is the multi-state bar exam, the MBE, which is a very rigorous test on American law, multiple choice heavy. A lot of the students over there even struggle with that test. And so because Barbary have been operating and preparing students for this test since 1967, so over 55 years, we've developed a very robust method on how you can get ready for this test. And we've had that technology and methodology equivalent onto the SQE1 courses. So we know what it takes to get you ready for this exam, particularly when you're used to drafting essays and written assignments, which also test you very well on legal knowledge application. But in multiple choice, you're either right or you're wrong. And for a high stakes test like this, you want to be going with a provider that gives you that comfort and insurance that you're on the right tracks. We give you bespoke hard copy resource books, and we give you workshops that are prepared by our tutors and learning coaches as well. So these are our course timelines. SQE1 for July 2022 and January 2023. We have a 40-week course starting in March this year for the January 2023 exam. And we have 20 and 10-week courses starting in February and May later this year. These are our fees for SQE1. It will be the same for SQE2 as well, but SQE1 is £2,999. Please feel free to use that QR code now on your phones. That will direct you to our funding pages on our website, talking about costs and the likes of that. And we have 3 scholarships available: essays, first class, and public interest. So we have essay competitions. So you submit an essay on a various topic. If you win, you receive a fully funded course. Second place, 50% off. There's 8 third places, which is £1,000 off. So there's 10 prizes in total. Certainly worthwhile looking at. First class honours speaks for itself. If you scored or obtained a first in your undergraduate degree, not postgrad, but undergrad, you will be entitled to, I think it's up to 50% off the SQE1 course. Miriam, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. You'll have more information than that than me. And then public interest. If you aspire to work in the public sector or want or already work in the public sector, it's up to 20% off the course as well. And we do have a student panel event actually coming up on February 9th. This will be after the SQE1 results will be published later this month. So we will have some current Barbary students who will have just passed the SQE1 exam, and you can certainly tune in for that to hear an in-depth sort of Q&A on how they passed, why they chose us, what the course, and their student experiences and tips for you if you want to venture down the SQE. So that's the presentation. Hopefully that gives you a good overview of the LPC versus the SQE. I think now it turns to you in the audience to either unmute yourselves and ask us questions, or Wiki questions for that matter, for her experience on the LPC, and we can tackle your questions. Or you can put it in the chat, that's fine as well. So I see there's some things in the chat already that I think Miriam's already answered. We do have a question from Rebecca. How does this prep course measure up against the QLTS prep course? Well, the assessments on QLTS are shorter than SQE. So we've taken obviously a lot of the content from that because they are similar assessments, but the SQE prep course is a lot more in depth and very focused on multiple choice because QLTS MCT is a 1-day exam. SQE1 is a 2-day exam. Naturally, we've had to build up a bank of 2,000 questions for SQE1 compared to, I think we had 1,200, 1,300 on QLTS, and they've been considerably updated based on the SRA's recommendation on the SQE assessments. Farad says, will you be sharing a copy of the presentation? Yeah, we're certainly happy to. That's fine. I think Tista, you raised your hand.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I asked my question on the chat then, but my question, but my question was, if you've completed the LPC, I understand you're exempt from the SQE1. I was on the SRA website recently and they talk about applying for an exemption. Can Barbary help with this application?
We can certainly help you. Obviously, the onus and responsibility is on you as the candidate, but we can certainly help you with the applying for this exemption for sure. And a good thing that you raised, and I think I forgot to mention it on the PowerPoint, is that, yeah, if you have an LPC already, you are exempt from SQE1. So yeah, happy to look at that for you, Tisa.
And sorry, I had another question, which is, I'm a foreign qualified lawyer. How would that impact my qualifying work experience?
Foreign qualified lawyers, to our understanding, you're likely exempt from qualifying work experience.
Okay, thank you.
So as long as you're a practicing lawyer in your home jurisdiction, you do not have to evidence QWE. You just need to complete the assessments.
Yeah, can I just, add something?
Sure.
If you have an LPC and you're a qualified lawyer, you'll have to decide which route you'd like to take in order to qualify. So if you have achieved the LPC, then you could go ahead and do SQE2 and qualifying work experience because you're exempt from SQE1. Also, qualified lawyers in other jurisdictions are exempt from the qualifying work experience requirement. You cannot combine both exemptions, so you'd have to choose whether you're going to benefit from your SQE1 exemption or whether you're going to benefit from your qualifying work experience exemption. So if you find that you achieve the LPC, but you're exempt from qualifying work experience as well, then you're going to have to decide, are you going to sit for SQE2 and complete 2 years of qualifying work experience, or sit for SQE1 and SQE2 and use your qualifying work experience exemption? I know that was a lot, so let me know if you want us to go over that.
No, I got it. Thank you.
No.
And Miriam, there's actually a technical question from Gladys. What are the options if you finish GDL and stage 1 skills of the LPC? Do you still have to take both SQE1 and 2? Or can you obtain exemptions from taking some parts of the SQE? Do you have more information?
Yeah, so the full SQE1 exemption is for those who have completed the LPC. So if you've partially completed the LPC, or if you are halfway through, you will have to sit SQE1 again. You can apply for an additional exemption because there are, and when you get technical about it, the SQE1 consists of 2 assessments. So you could apply for a partial exemption. It's unlikely that you would be granted that, but exemptions and application for exemptions are on a case-by-case basis. If you want more information on that, we can provide that and signpost you to the SRA's process. But the general rule is that you would have to have completed that LPC, be able to prove that you've achieved the LPC qualification in order to benefit from that SQE1 exemption.
Yeah. I think that's Shivani, if you've raised your hand.
Yeah, hi. Sorry for my throat. I'm probably going to be coughing like a maniac in between. But just wanted to quickly check with you. I was checking on the SRA website. I'm a foreign qualified lawyer, but I've done my trademarks attorney course in the UK.
Okay.
And I've done a master's in US. As far as I figured that I do need to get my degree verified in a certain way so that I'm eligible to apply for SQE, right? So
yes.
Does that process, excuse me one second. Will Barbary help with that process, or should we just do it parallelly on the side?
Yeah, we can certainly look at all your paperwork and assist you with the application. Of course,
that's great.
Responsibility is always on the candidate, but we can certainly help with looking at that for sure. And it will be a good learning exercise, of course, for us as well. So we're always learning as we're going along with this. It's all new for everyone, I think.
Thanks.
No worries. That's another question. Are there any questions for Wiki or Jonathan on their LPC experiences before I go into all these? No, I don't think so. Okay, so I guess I'll just go through one by one. So let's see. Will the prep for the exams all be virtual? Will some of it be in person, especially for the prep for client interview and exams and advocacy? So it's all, the prep with Barbary is all online. For SQE2, we'll have in-person mock simulations because of the style of the test. And then obviously the tests themselves will be in person, obviously with social distancing measures in place as well. And that will be communicated by the exam providers like Kaplan and Pearson VUE. If I secure a TC in the UK, can I do it at the same time as the SQE? So I assume you mean that you want to use your TC as QWE for your TC. And if that's the case, then yes, you can do that and get through the SQE assessments along at the same time. Does Barbary assist candidates in registration for SQE1 and 2 exams? We can assist, but obviously the responsibility is on the candidates to register. We can give you reminders of when to register and how to go about it and all that sort of thing. What is the process for exemptions? When should I be making them? Obviously, it just depends what you want to obtain an exemption for and when you want to sit that particular exam. So if it's an SQE1 or 2 exemption, you should contact the SRA and they would be able, and the information should be on their website, but if it's not clear, contacting us or them, we would certainly be able to help you. Yeah, so there's another question. To apply for exemptions, who do we contact, Barbary or SRA? Ideally the SRA, but we are also happy to look at it as well. Are the fees for SQE1 the same for 40 week and 20 week? Yes, they are all the same price. The only difference is the intensity of studying. So 40 weeks is about 10 hours of learning a week. 20 weeks is 20 hours of learning a week. 10 weeks is very much full-time, 35, 40 hours, if not more, of learning a week. Do I have to do any equivalency for my non-law degree before I enroll in the prep courses? Am I reading that correct? Miriam, can you help me with this one?
So I think this is in reference to like the GDL and that whole confusion. You don't need any prior knowledge in order to enroll with Barbary. We'll make sure that you're ready for that exam. We do have different course lengths. You might decide to opt for a longer course if you have no prior knowledge of law, but there's nothing, you don't need to study outside of our materials. You don't need to do pre-studying before enrolling with us, especially if you're from a non-law background immediately after completing your degree or whatever stage you are at, you can enroll with us and we will prepare you for the relevant SQE1 exam.